I'd like to call to order the Board of Zoning Appeals for February 16th, 2023.
Okay, roll call. Mr. Shipley?
Here.
Mr. Treves?
Here.
Ms. Neff?
Here.
Ms. Ross?
Here.
And Ms. Sundar?
Yeah.
Everybody's here.
All right. We'll begin with the swearing in of witnesses. Anyone who intends to testify this evening, please raise your right hand and be sworn. You solemnly swear that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. State, I do. And when it's your turn to offer testimony, please state your full name, address, and affirm that you've been sworn in. So when you step up here to the podium, please again state your name, your full name, your address, and affirm that you've been sworn in. We have one case for new business this evening, conditional use application, CU 2301, and then two cases for old business this evening.
Okay, starting with the staff report for conditional use case CU-23-01. The applicant and owner is Mr. Todd Scarborough. The site is 2517 McCumber Lane, Lewis Center, Ohio 43035. Parcel ID number 318-210-12-025-000. Current zoning for the property is single-family planned residential district, and their request is seeking a conditional use from section 10.04A of the Orange Township zoning resolution to allow for a home occupation in an area zone single-family planned residential district. So a brief summary, again, seeking a conditional use from our zoning resolution for the operation of a home occupation. The proposed home occupation would be the operation of a federal firearms licensing. Subject to site, again, is 2517 McCumber Lane. Surrounding the property in all directions is zoned single-family planned residential. Land uses also surrounding are all single-family residences. To the south is McCumber Lane. Included in the staff report is an aerial photo, zoomed out and zoomed in, of the property. And then onto the staff review. So I'm going to go through this. These are the home occupation standards that are listed in our code under the single-family planned residential. So home occupations conducted by the resident of a permitted dwelling subject to the following restrictions. Number one, the home occupation shall be carried on solely within the confines of the residential structures and architecturally compatible accessory buildings which are customarily associated with the residential use and character of the neighborhood. In discussions with the applicant, they've noted that the home occupation will take place within the confines of the home. Number two, only one sign is allowed. At the time of this report, no signage details were sent over to staff, so I don't believe the applicant intends to put any signage on the property. Number three, the home occupation shall not occupy more than 20% of the total floor area of the dwelling unit or 50% of the combined floor space. No specified square footage was included in the application. However, staff believes that it will not exceed this amount. Number four, no more than one non-resident employee shall work on said premises. At the time of this report, discussions with the applicant, the proposed home occupation will comply with this. Number five, the services may be rendered on the premises or elsewhere. Discussions with the applicant, all the home occupational interactions would take place within the home, which would comply. Number six, for parking demands, essentially this is making sure that with the use associated with it, it meets the commercial type use in addition to the residential use. So residential, we require 4 off-street parking spaces. Going through our code, it doesn't explicitly list this as a commercial type use. So staff believes the closest type use for this would be an office, which requires 1 space for each 400 square feet of floor area, plus 1 space for each employee, totaling in 6 off-street parking spaces. In discussions with the applicant, staff believes that this standard will be met. For number 7, kind of talking about the equipment, processes, storage associated with the home occupation shall not create odors, noise, vibration, glare, electrical interference, or other nuisances detectable or normal sense off the lot. Applicant notes in their application that the proposed use will not involve uses, activities, processes, materials, equipment, or condition of operation that will be detrimental to the surrounding properties. Number 8, waste material, solid liquid, shall not be created on the premises at a level greater than normal to the residential use. In their application, the applicant responds that the proposed use will be served adequately by essential public facilities and services, which include highways, streets, police, fire protection, drainage structures, refuse disposal, water and sewers, and schools. And then lastly, number 9, no activity shall be conducted or permitted which creates a nuisance to neighboring properties. Applicant notes in their application that proposed use will not be hazardous or disturbing to existing or future uses. So that's essentially it for the staff report. I will say for public comment, we did receive 2 emails. Both are provided to you. One just came in this afternoon, so I did print that out there before you. Other than that, I did receive approximately 6 or 7 different phone calls. Of those, I know 2 were not opposed to the application. Some of those were indifferent, and I think some were just concerned generally about just the nature of the application and the home occupation. So that's all staff has at this time. The applicant is here. If they wish to give a brief overview about the application and the federal firearms license process, and in case you board members have any questions as well.
Scarborough?
I am Todd Scarborough, and I affirm that I have been sworn in.
Could you give us your address, please, sir?
It's 2517 Macomber Lane, Lewis Center, Ohio.
Thank you.
Okay. So, as Brett just mentioned, I think there's a request for me to describe the process that a federal firearms licensee goes through. So, as a federal firearms licensee for the last 30 years, on occasion, I've transferred firearms to mainly friends of mine. Typically, the way things work is a friend of mine, they find a firearm out of state. Say we're all shooting trap or skeet together on a regular basis. Someone finds a really nice trap gun out of state. They say, "Hey, Todd, I'd like to buy this gun, but I can't do that legally because I'm in Ohio and it's out of state. Would you handle a transfer for me?" And that's what an FFL does. Is it's really a license to allow a transfer, but most often it's from out of state. There's a process that we have to go through. There's a Form 4473. It's the yellow form. There's all kinds of information on there to make sure that the person that is receiving the firearm is lawfully allowed to receive the firearm. And then there's a call made to the National Instant Criminal Background Check System where the FBI verifies that the person receiving the firearm is in fact, who they say they are and allowed to lawfully receive the firearm. So every time that I've ever transferred a firearm, which has only averaged probably twice a year over the last 30 years, if that, we've gone through the background check and I've made sure all the paperwork has been filled. More importantly, I've been inspected by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms numerous times for the last 30 years. I've always passed all the inspections without any issues, including most recently, but about a month ago, the ATF stopped by, went through all my records. We had a nice conversation, and they determined that I was in full compliance, meaning that the license, they're ready to issue a new license to me, but they need the board to approve, the conditional use permit, I guess as it's called. Outside of that, I guess I would just point out that, it is lawful for people to sell firearms to each other, personal transactions back and forth. But with someone that has an FFL, you're going through a very formal process. So there's actually a benefit to the community by having someone with an FFL because there's a very formal process, including the background check that I just mentioned that the FBI does. As far as cars in the driveway, wouldn't expect you to see a car in my driveway very often. I would be surprised if there was an extra car in the driveway more than a couple, 2 or 3 times a year, as it typically works out. I think you may have some, or I've heard you may have some questions. I'd be glad to entertain those questions. I do feel that I do meet the criteria that are listed in the application.
So, for clarification,
Yes.
So how often do you see yourself, if this were approved, how often do you see yourself transferring firearms? What's the frequency with which firearms, for example, are passed through?
Did I do?
Home?
So,
If this were approved as conditional use,
yes,
the frequency with which firearms would go through your
easily
home.
less than 12 times a year. Easily less than 12 times a year. So, as a FFL holder, there's a real convenience factor. So, if I personally have work that I need to do or have done on a firearm, say I want to send a trap gun away to get recoil reducing features added to it, I can ship it back and forth, and it's no problem. Anyone can mail a firearm, but only an FFL holder can receive a firearm. That's the big deal about having an FFL. That's why it's so convenient to have an FFL, because you can receive an FFL or a firearm at your household. That's the big deal. That's why it's so convenient. That's why I've done it for 30 plus years.
You mentioned on average you've
Mhm.
done this maybe a couple times a year.
On
but-
average,
but-
yeah.
But now you said 12. Are you ramping
I would be
up,
su-
or are you just
No,
being
no.
conservative?
So I'm just being very, very conservative. My wife is a cancer survivor. She's been through radiation. We're still in a pandemic. I have very few people over at the house for a reason. That's because we're concerned about, transmission of illness and that kind of thing. So I've been a very low key or infrequent FFL transferee, so to speak, for the last several years because of that.
Can you help me understand? I'm not familiar with the process.
Yeah.
So you've been had this for 30 years,
Mhm.
but can you help me understand why you're seeking this particular variance now?
Okay, so I've lived all over Ohio,
Uh-huh.
and then I've lived out of state. So every
Okay.
time you change your residences, you have to notify BATF, and they have to issue a new license with your current address.
Okay.
You can't get a license, say in Dayton, Ohio, and then suddenly move to Lewis Center and use the same license. You have to make sure that if you're doing a transfer, that your license is totally up to date.
So you're new to this address.
I am new to this address. That's correct, and that's why I'm going through all this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So during the day,
Mm-hmm.
how many times would you use your license?
None or maybe once. Yeah.
Because you're saying a couple of times.
Yes.
I
it
didn't
is.
know there might be other duties that
Oh,
that
okay.
license allows.
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. It's really designed to allow the transfer of firearms, and specifically, I'm able to buy things wholesale if I want to, or if I need to send something away for repair and receive it back.
How are those guns shipped?
UPS or FedEx, strictly regulated. I will also mention something about the BATF inspections, which I think is pretty impactful. BATF has had a zero tolerance policy now for a long time, and anyone that has an FFL today is playing by the rules. If you haven't, you don't have an FFL, and zero tolerance means zero tolerance. So your paperwork and your records have to be spot on, or you don't have an FFL. So I've had mine for 30 years.
And is it renewed
Every 3 years.
Oh, every 3 years.
Every 3 years, yes, sir.
Have you gone through this process in other communities you live?
Actually, I have, yes. Yes, and you get a different response. In Tennessee, I was getting a lot of thumbs up, and they were excited that I was selling firearms. So it's a different deal, but it's all good. It's all good. I worked in government for 23 years. I appreciate law and order.
So are we selling firearms or are we transferring firearms?
It is selling, but really, technically it is selling, but it's also transferring. So it's both. And I know that is hard to wrap your mind around but it is. I can't say that it's not selling, but the crux of really the whole argument is you have to have the license to lawfully transfer.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I think the vision I was,
Is there a reason you are doing it from home?
Oh, well, if I won the lottery, I could open my own outdoor store, and then I'd have like this log cabin thing, and we'd have something like Cabela's, but it'd be a hell of a lot nicer. So, but I just do it out of my home. There are thousands, if not tens of thousands, of FFL holders all across America, often known as like kitchen table dealers. And they do firearm transactions out of their house. So yeah, just it's good old fashioned small business type of thing. And you think about it as far as like benefit to the community, because of the number of FFLs across America doing business as a small business. It keeps the gun buying population from having to go exclusively to like a big box retailer. So which would then cause prices to go higher. So by having small business, prices stay lower.
Said that so you transferred firearms for your friends.
Yeah.
Is that your typical customer?
Yes, absolutely.
How do people find you if they want to do so?
Well, if people, so often it's just word of mouth, basically. There's people I get to know, maybe I'm, involved in certain nonprofit organizations, or, maybe going to a certain trap or skate club on a frequent basis, and people get to know me, and then we start talking and that kind of thing. So that's out. I'm not advertising on the internet. I'm not advertising on the radio or anything like that. And there will be no signs out in front of my house. I can guarantee you that.
There is a question asked from one of your neighbors. You screen the applicants, do background checks before providing your address.
Well, BATF actually publicizes my address on their website somewhere. I've had some people call me over the years. So the fact that I have a FFO is I think relatively public information. But the National Instant Criminal Background Check that's done for every transfer is a very high profile or high level background check conducted by the FBI.
So this background check will be done even before they come to your home?
Well, I can't do the background check until I see their driver's license and I'm able to enter, their driver's license number and their social security number and those type of things. That's what the background check. People at the NICS, that's what they ask for.
So you do that before they come to your property?
No, after, because I don't have the information until they show up.
After.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because the reason is like this is in the neighborhood and
Yeah.
it won't be all the time just your friends. That might
Yeah.
be because you are the
I understand.
it's word of mouth, so it goes everywhere and people of different
Yeah.
background might come. So how do you say this?
Well,
protect the neighborhood?
I'm over the last 30 years, I've been very selective as to who I do transactions with, and hence I've had very little in the way of issues, if any at all. So it's just be very careful and make sure you do the background check and make sure all paperwork is filled out. As I indicated before, the BATF inspectors, they're looking everything over very, very carefully every 3 years to make sure everything's on the up and up. So far, so good. I haven't had any issues.
Is there a HOA approval? Do we need one?
So I spoke to, I think, 2 different members on the HOA. They said just they weren't able to really issue HOA approval. It's not really, I don't believe, a permit that they really give out or seek, not like a deck type permit that an HOA might see. So they did not issue HOA approval.
They did not. How did you handle this when, like, before this address, did the HOA approve?
I've never had any issues of any kind, and I've had this license at 1, 2, 3 different addresses in the Westerville area, one over in a little town north of Dayton, plus Tennessee, and now this one. So I've had 0 issues over the years, and I would anticipate 0 issues. Yeah, I work full time for a living. I don't have time for to generate a bunch of drama outside of that. I'm basically a guy that likes to pheasant hunt and shoot, trap, and skeet, and I have a lot of friends. And every now and then, someone finds a shotgun that's out of state and they want me to handle the transfer for them. It's really kind of that simple.
May I ask you, which was your last place you lived, like, resident?
Troy, Ohio. Yeah.
So to walk through the conditional use section that Ms. Whitman brought up, started, so no signs.
No signs.
That
No,
was
sir.
one of the,
Yeah.
that hadn't been. And then the square footage, I'm assuming, you've looked at this, no more than 20% of total floor area. What you're really talking about is,
My dining room table.
okay. And file cabinet or a desk or something along those lines, perhaps, at
It
most.
literally is the dining room table.
Certainly less than 20% is what I'm.
Yes, sir.
We also have questions for Mr. Scarborough?
Yeah, it was back to the square footage. If it's your dining room table, then I assume you don't count a home office for this business.
I'm not taking any sort of tax deduction or anything like that. No.
Just to declare an area, and I assume since you said dining room table, that you weren't going to declare that your office.
No, I wasn't really planning on it.
Okay.
Unless you tell me I need to.
No,
Okay.
no,
Okay.
that's not my intent.
I will say that Mr. Brett has been awesome to work with. We've had a lot of very intensive conversation going over a lot of details. Having worked in government for 23 years, I do appreciate his attitude and his approach and his diligence and the way he performs his job. And I know there's not a lot of appreciation sometimes for people that work in government, but again, having worked in government, I do appreciate people that work in government and do a hell of a job.
Any other questions for Mr. Scarborough?
Is there anyone
Yeah,
else to
it's a-
speak?
I was getting ready to ask that, but at the end, that's what I was going to say. There's no other questions, Mr. Scarborough. Other public comments? Anybody else that wishes to speak?
Yes. No question.
Oh,
Yes,
sir, you have
You
to.
can't say anything at all unless you're up here at the podium.
It was more concerned that
If there's anything you want to address us, you just need to come up here. Otherwise, we're gonna.
Just want to make sure you have the opportunity. You came, so if there's something that you want to.
Just a technical question.
Mhm.
You're going to transfer a gun from Michigan or wherever.
Yeah.
Do you technically buy the gun in Michigan, transfer it to your house, and then sell it to me when I come here?
In a case like that, what would most likely happen is you would just send a certified check to the gun dealer that's in Michigan, and I would send a signed copy of my FFL, and then the gun would get shipped probably by UPS or FedEx to my doorstep. And once I have it, I would have you come over, you'd fill out the form 4473. I'd run the background check, and as long as we got to proceed, I would be able to transfer it to you. If we got it delayed or denied, I would not be able to transfer it to you. Yep.
When they deliver that to your home, is that a process? They get your signature, the product when they deliver to your home.
Oh, yes, ma'am. FedEx does not just drop off a firearm on your front porch. I'm sorry, I should have clarified that. Someone has to be home, an adult has to be home. Yeah, I forgot. Thank you very much. That's a really good question. Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So when someone comes to your house to pick up
Mhm.
their gun, I mean, is there any target shooting or testing out of anything that?
No, hell no. Yes, there's none of that going on.
Okay.
No. Yeah, I would definitely not do that.
Okay. I assume.
Oh yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
from rural Ohio, so it's a little bit different.
I spent a lot of time in the Hocking Hills. I think I may understand. Yeah.
Any other questions?
From this email, what is your opinion about that? 6.6. It's a very long. So you decide to ask him about that. The assumption that you are approved for the permit and at some point you would like to upgrade your federal firearms license to be to say a dealer of destructive devices or a manufacturer of firearms or munitions, or you required by the ATF to notify your neighbors of Orange Township of your license upgrade.
No destructive devices are going to be manufactured, I can assure you of that. I think where that might be going in part, anytime a individual applies for a FFL or applies for a renewal of an FFL, or in my case, a change of address, a copy of the application has to be sent to the chief law enforcement officer, which generally speaking is the sheriff. So that's part of the process. And I've had, over the years, I've had zero feedback from the sheriffs and local police chiefs. Frankly, if there's not a problem, there's not a problem. I think they have other things to spend their time on.
Board, if I may, can I ask a few clarifying questions on that point?
Mhm.
Just because this is a learning experience for me as well. And my name's Julie. I'm an attorney. I represent the township. So the question in particular, is there a special license with respect to the quote unquote dealer of destructive devices? Does that mean something in particular?
No, this is the license that this is like what I have is I believe called a Class 1 FFL. There are other types of FFLs that are way more involved, especially if you get involved in manufacturing firearms.
Okay.
That is definitely not what we're talking about here.
Okay.
But that's a whole different type of license.
Okay.
It's that's really involved. And you know, just to be clear, there are certain types of FFL holders that deal in fully automatic weapons. Those are Class 3. That is not what we're talking about here. So just to be clear.
Would it be again, you've done this for a very long time.
Yes.
Would you be comfortable in saying that your request solely relates to the license you have now?
Mm-hmm.
And so if the board did want to approve and part of you could make part of a condition that would specifically spell out that if you do happen to approve, the home occupation would be with respect to his current license, which would probably help address the issue that the resident mentioned.
Sounds good.
In that vein, would you be all right giving us a copy of your license?
Yes.
So we have it on record?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I can give you a copy of it once they reissue it. So, yep. So
I understand it's a process.
Right. Brett is working with the BATF agent, and once the BATF agent hears that we have the thumbs up here, he'll issue the license to me, and then I'll be able to email a copy to Brett, and then you guys can have a copy.
So it sounds like licenses are in categories,
Yes, sir, they are.
and your category is a category 1.
I believe that is the correct category. Yes, sir.
I believe that's the correct category.
It's the last time I looked, it was, yes.
Give us any, what that encompasses.
It would be for, I would call regular type firearms. So like your shotguns and your rifles that are not, they're just, single shot or bolt action or, semi-auto, that kind of thing. Class 3 is like fully automatic, and then Class 2 is something in between. But those different types of licenses start to apply to people that are like literally manufacturing all kinds of ordnance, which, I have an interest in that. So.
Just a quick additional thing for staff too. I think if it did turn into the manufacturing, I think that would fall under a different commercial type use, which would trigger different parking standards. So I think that would have to come back before the board if that was something that you wish to do.
Also have dangerous chemicals.
Yeah, we don't want anything to do with that.
Yep.
Even reloading. You have to have a license.
Yeah, I'm not manufacturing ammunition or firearms. And I'm not doing anything with fireworks or anything like that, which I think like it's like your Class 2 and Class 3 type stuff. So I don't know what visions you guys have in your minds of like someone making their own mortars or bazookas or something like that. I have no idea, but no, that's not what we're talking about. So.
Any other questions? Other comments? Okay. We have in our package here also for conditional use, home occupation, a number of items that we go through to determine whether or not you meet those factors. I'm not going to read them all, but based upon the discussions that we've had, no other questions here. And based upon those factors that are all listed right here, going through them, I'm going to make a motion that we approve based on these factors. I move to approve case number CU 2301, the property located at 2517 McCumber Lane, Lewis Center, Ohio, seeking a conditional use in the Orange Township zoning resolution. And I would like to, however we need to do that, list that as a Category 1 license approval. So however that, the attorney can probably put that best, but in my recommendation,
With the
my motion.
condition that we have a copy of that.
Yeah.
I know I spoke softly, but hopefully the mics picked it up.
Does that sound right? Does that
I
make
think it's called Class 1. Class 1.
Class one.
case.
So the recommendation for approval will be based upon either Category 1, Class 1, however that's worded, whatever the proper wording for that is. So that would be my move.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion made to conditionally approve conditional use case CU-23-01, conditional upon proof of a Class 1 or Type 1 certification federal firearms license, seconded by Mr. Treves. Those voting, Ms. Neff,
Yes.
Ms. Ross,
Yes.
Ms. Sundar,
Yes.
Mr. Treves,
Yes.
and Mr. Shipley.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'll follow up with you with a response letter tomorrow. Next step.
Y'all have a great evening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, our next point of business is old business. Variance application VA 2218. This is one that we've continued from January 19th.
Yes, board. So again, variance case VA-22-18. The applicant and owners are Mark and Becky Hostrovsky. The site is 1874 Ivy Street, Lewis Center, Ohio, 43035. Parcel ID 318-240-47-010-000. The zoning is single-family planned residential. So quick summary, applicant is requesting an area variance from rezoning case 12451, the Estates of Glen Oak, to allow for the construction of a swimming pool to encroach 7 feet and 5 inches into the 35-foot rear yard setback. This request was modified from the original request heard at the January 19th, 2023 hearing, where their original request was at 14 feet 2 inches. That was continued to today. The proposed pool would be fully enclosed with a 60-inch aluminum fence and self-locking mechanisms. So surrounding the area on all sides is zoned single-family planned residential. To the north, east, and west is single-family residences, and then to the south it does about HOA open space. In the aerial photo there, you can see the surrounding areas. Then on to staff review. Again, so the proposed swimming pool has been revised to encroach 7 feet and 5 inches into the 35-foot setback, modified from the original request, which is 14-foot 2. So the original request was 40%, and then this new request of 7 feet and 5 inches is roughly 21% of a variance request from rezoning case 12451, Estates of Glen Oak. Included in the application, again, just as a refresher, they did receive HOA approval. There was one public comment regarding this application, and then the applicant did provide a response letter to that public comment as well. So that's all that staff has. I believe the applicants are here if they wish to provide any additional background or details.
Good evening. My name is Mark Rosowski, 1874 Ivy Street, and I affirm I've been sworn in.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you again to the board for your time. Thinking back, I realized that I wasn't prepared to answer all your questions adequately last time, so I'm just going to kind of walk through a few of those questions that were asked and restate my answers for them for the board, and then I'll be ready for any questions you may have. To the question about whether the property in question will yield a reasonable return without there any beneficial to the property without the variance. As we stated, I just wanted to state that there's no other reasonable location for the private swimming pool without creating practical difficulties due to the existing structures, utility easements, slope of on the west side of the lot, and any of the side yard requirements. We've updated, the updated design submitted for this hearing. We're going to incur some additional costs for that, and to build entirely outside of the rear setback, cost would skyrocket due to the demolition of existing patio. To the question about whether the variance is substantial, no, the variance is less than the 25% of the rear setback. The variance is not substantial due to the relative size of our yard. Updated design being requested will encroach approximately on 21% of the rear setback as opposed to the 40% originally proposed. I think to the more important question about the essential character of the neighborhood substantially altered or whether adjoining properties suffer a substantial detriment, the character of the neighborhood would be maintained. The HOA Architectural Review Board has approved the design as appropriate for our community goals. Project will not alter or affect any adjoining properties. The structure is below grade and therefore will not obstruct any sight lines or disrupt natural lighting of adjoining properties. There are several in-ground pools in our neighborhood. Through a records request, we found there's a variance of over 50% for a property less than half a mile from our home, VA 2015 on Patience Way, which encroached 17.5 of a 35-foot setback. And then
Sorry, can you say that again?
Sure. It was application VA 2015, 1632 in Patience Way, encroached 17.5 feet of their 35-foot rear setback. And that is the overhead view. It's like the street over, directly behind us. And then the important point, whether the property owner purchased the property with knowledge of the zoning restrictions. We were not aware of the zoning restrictions. We are the original owners of the home. Built with Dominion in 2013, the original plot map, which we included with our application, does not reference any rear setbacks. Only utility easements are indicated on the plot map, and we have not been careful to encroach those. There were, like we stated, other in-ground pools in the neighborhood. We weren't aware to think that there would be anything besides the normal permitting process required. And we review the HOA rules and deed restrictions. Nothing mentioning setback there. So those were the key points. I just wanted to make sure I answered clearly this time around. Ready for the questions? Bring them on.
I think most of the questions probably have been answered, but you've gone from a 40% variance request to a 21% variance request. 60-inch fence, self-blocking gates.
Clarification, there's no pool cover, correct?
There is no pool cover. No.
Okay. That's not required or anything, just my question.
I don't have it.
Other than that, I have none.
I'm impressed with your preparedness.
Thank you.
I would make a motion.
Do we want to
Based
open
on-
up to public comment
Yes.
first, just in
We
case?
do. We need.
Sorry.
It's all right.
That's it. Any public comment? Anybody want to say anything about this particular case? All right, we continue.
Okay, thank you. Based on these factors, I move to approve case number VA-22-18 for property located at 1874 Ivy Street, Loop Center, Ohio, seeking an area variance from rezoning case /12451 Estates of Glen Oak, SFPRD, to allow for the construction of a residential swimming pool to encroach 7 feet and 5 inches into the 35 feet rear yard setback in an area zone single-family residential district.
Okay, motion made to approve, made by Ms. Sundar, seconded by Ms. Ross. Those voting, Ms. Neff,
Yes.
Ms. Ross, Ms. Sundar,
Yes.
Mr. Krebs,
Yes.
and Mr. Shipley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Good luck. All right, and our final case for this evening is variance case VA 2219. Again, continued from January 19th.
Yep, so case VA-22-19, the applicant and owner is Mr. Scott Blanchard. The site is 6950 Greenspire Drive, Lewis Center, Ohio, 43035. Parcel number 318-240-22026-000, currently zoned single-family planned residential district. So brief summary, applicant is requesting an area variance from rezoning case number 12451, Estates of Glen Oak, to allow for the construction of a swimming pool to encroach 8 feet and 9 inches into the 35 feet rear yard setback. This request was modified from the original request heard at the January 19th, 2023 hearing, where the request to encroach 12 feet was continued. The proposed pool would have 5 feet tall fence as well as an automatic safety cover. The apron materials around the pool proposed to be brick pavers. Surrounding the property in all directions is zoned single-family planned residential district. To the north, east, and west are single-family residences, and then to the south is HOA open space. Included in the staff report is an aerial photo. And then onto the staff review. Again, so the proposed swimming pool has been revised to encroach 8 feet 9 inches. The original request was 12 feet, which is roughly a 34% request, and the revised 8 feet 9 is 25% exactly. So in the plan shown there, in red is the length of the 35-foot setback, and the different distances showing the 8 foot 9 inch encroachment, and then the remaining 26 feet 3 inches from the edge of the pool to the property line. In green shows the distance from the home to the apron to the pool, and then to the rest of the property line. And then in blue shows the distances for the apron around the pool. So as far as public comment, again, it's still the same 3 public comments received from last month, all surrounding the property to the east, west, and to the north, which were all in favor. The HOA approval is also included in their application. That's all that staff has. I believe the applicant is here as well, in case they have any additional background or things to say.
All right, Mr. Blanchard?
Hi, I'm Scott Blanchard, reside at 6950 Greenspire Drive, and I affirm that I've been sworn in.
Thank you.
I can see the addendum to the original plan. Again, the bigger issue why we had originally asked for the initial variance, we talked about the issue of some of the grass burned in those areas, which is, again, I'm not fabricating that portion. With the achievement of that 25% variance, that does downgrade it from substantial or significant variances you guys had mentioned. What we'll likely have to do is that 13-foot portion of the patio that is closest to the house, the limits of what they recommend would be 10 feet. So what we'll basically exchange in is what we're moving closer to the house. We'll just have to knock off that to kind of appease, again, try to appease the variance portion or percentage to also then accommodate staying out of that area.
And that puts you to 25%.
That is correct.
8 feet 9 inches. 5-foot fence, self-locking gates, and
Yes.
a cover.
Yes.
Are you saying that the 13 changes to 10?
The paver patio, that would be that 13-foot right there, we would be looking at shortening that portion because, and to answer the question about the window situation, I was thinking about this last time. So there's a sliding door. Our master bedroom is above the sliding doors. They're the double hinged windows. They don't produce, for whatever reason, the same intense focal reflection like our great room windows do, that which is out of the porch and that juts out of the back of the house. That's that little bump out area. those great room windows are the ones that are just more of a full pane window. Those are the ones that we have issues with. Because our patios back there, we've been there for near 12 years. We've never had issues in the other areas, just that portion of the yard. So we were just thinking of shortening maybe that 13-foot, which is just a paver patio. We're just condensing that to stay out of that area where the reflection off those windows lies.
That doesn't impact the application, right? Not in the-
Correct. Should not alter the variance portion or where the pool would actually lie. Yeah.
Want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. Based on these factors, I move to approve case number VA 22-19 for property located at 6950 Greenspire Drive, Lewis Center, Ohio, seeking an area variance from rezoning case number 12451, Estates of Glen Oak, SFPRD, to allow for the construction of a residential swimming pool to encroach 8 feet and 9 inches into the 35 feet rear yard setback in an area zoned single-family residential district.
Okay, motion made to approve by Ms. Neff, seconded by Ms. Ross. Those voting, Ms. Neff,
Yes.
Ms. Ross,
Yes.
Ms. Sundar,
Yes.
Mr. Krebs,
Yes.
and Mr. Shipley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Good luck. So
That's
we
all
have
that staff has. I know I sent out the minutes this morning, afternoon. I'm not sure if you guys had time to go through those, so we can push those off to next month.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not a
So you want
chance.
to push the minutes? Or do you?
There's no motion needed for that,
Do you-
so.
Okay.
When do you need our, before the next meeting?
The comments for the minutes?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah, other than that, I did just print out one fun thing for you guys. It's kind of a nice little chart. Kind of shows what we did last year as a zoning department. So we had 674 total permits. Pretty busy year. Over $130 million of total capital improvement was done within the township. And that's just a tracked number. I think we kind of halfway through the year last year just started tracking that number. So a lot of investment going in, which is pretty awesome to see. As far as BZA, I know it's not shown on here, but total cases last year was 19, 16 were variances, and then 3 were conditional uses. So not quite record breaking, but approaching that. So
No, but quite honestly, the ratio doesn't surprise me.
yeah,
And this was interesting when I sat in here and saw this. I thought it was
Yeah.
really.
Wasn't this in the flyer from Orange Township?
I believe so. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I like this size. I can read it a lot better than the quarter of the thing that was in the
Sure.
township letter.
Anything else, President?
That's all we got.
All right, meeting adjourned.
Thank you for all the hard work.